Hello everyone, I'm Admiral Ellis of the TTO, and welcome to another episode of the Admiral's Musings. I did this week in the wrong order. I'll say that right off the bat, and I've actually given allusions to that to a couple of my friends earlier this week. I just try to throw in little tidbits. It's kind of entertaining. But, yeah, I did this week in the wrong order. The reason being is I got a mission on Monday that I was supposed to do Thursday. Well, I was supposed to get it. Yeah, I was supposed to get it on Thursday, and then I'd go and do it right away. But I got it on Monday. I got myself all prepped and ready for it, and then I realized that, alas, I was 3 days early. So I decided, whatever, let's go do it right now. And I got in my time ship, and I went, 3 days in the future. I don't know. They do when it, I like to call, we're not time agents. That's a different thing. They work differently. They're a more for-profit corporation. But when a time travelers organization person sets up a base at a point in the timeline, they tend to get missions around their sphere of influence, basically, just because it's easier to do it that way instead of sending ships willy-nilly throughout the time stream. But yeah, I had a mission for Thursday. It was an escort mission, which actually just went fine. It was only a threat of incursion, and nothing even happened from that. We've been keeping tabs on the actual shipment, but for now it's moved on. It's out of my sphere of influence pretty much. If something does change in the next couple of days, I'll probably get called out, but I'm pretty much done with that. I helped it move on its way. I can't tell you what it was, just because, but it's out and away. I can't tell you where it is either, because frankly, I'm giving these, I'm talking about what happened this week, but I can't, unless the situation's over and done with, I can't give specifics. It's like the whole, this information is classified because it would be a breach in security up until this point in the future when the mission's over and we don't have to worry about it anymore. As long as I've, kept tabs on the whole thing, nothing can override that. Time works in really strange ways. What was I saying? I was on a train of thought. Yeah, no. So I jumped from Monday to Thursday, and then I did Thursday, and then I did Friday, and then when I was done with Friday night, I went back, and I did Tuesday and Wednesday. Now, there was a reason for this. Reason is, well, there are limits on time travel set by the Time Travelers Organization, of course, but the reason those limits are set are because of the limits of the universe. You can only create so many breaches in the not in the time vortex, but in the fabric of reality before things start to fall apart. And although it's the TTO's job to keep it together, when stuff like that does start to happen, we try to be preemptive and keep us from having to do our job, if that makes any sense. It's like if you were a contractor, but you were also an inspector, so you went through and you made sure that you wouldn't have to rebuild anything because it's up to code already. I guess that's a decent analogy, but that's the only thing I could come up with at short notice like that. Don't demand me to do analogies. But yeah, so you can only put so many holes in the fabric of reality. And now that meant that I was there twice on Thursday and Friday, because I didn't time travel back from Wednesday night to Friday night. That would have just been wasteful, and it would have meant two holes in the universe very close to one another, and I didn't want to do that. That's the reason I didn't go back to Monday after I was done with my mission on Thursday. It would have been too many holes too close together. Not that having two of me in the same spot didn't present a problem, but the me that went Thursday, Friday, then back to Tuesday, did Wednesday, and then just stayed out of it until Friday night. That me came back, the later me. As the first me went back to Tuesday, the one who had already done Tuesday and Wednesday stepped in. In the meantime, I actually just hung out on Devereaux and did basic things. Hung out with my crew. Really, we've just been waiting for the next big thing to come around. I don't foresee it happening too soon. I mean, of course, again, I've been getting these foreboding notions, but we're just getting missions from time to time, but nothing huge or groundbreaking or universe-breaking. Just simple missions. A 3-hour tour. I couldn't help with that. Yeah, yesterday was boring. This week was pretty simple, other than the whole time travel conundrum. I mean, I'm sure the Doctor gets it a lot worse, and I've seen this TV show, which is based on what he does, but yeah, I kind of get it, how he gets screwed over by his own timeline, and how he has to jump around and set limits on himself, and really, the Doctor's self-regulating is kind of a feat, because he isn't one to self-regulate. He isn't one to regulate, period. Well, no. He's very commanding. In a good way, of course. But, that's him. That's the Doctor. Didn't have any interaction with any other troops, no interaction with SG teams or TTO members. Other than the time travel conundrum, it was a boring week. Something I do try to avoid, though, is hanging out with myself. Mostly because Sarah makes fun of me every time I do it, but aside from that, it's just kind of weird. And if we do too much together, we can create holes in the universe. If I do too much with myself. That sounds really weird and kind of awkward. So I'm going to break off that subject and talk about how nice it is to be living in this reality with all of you. Blah, blah, blah. No. The Time Travelers Organization is a very specialized group. Although specialized isn't really the word for it. We kind of just take people and then we say, yeah, you're working for us. There's a thing with that, though. You know, I always wondered for a long time, right after I entered, because when you come into the TTO, they don't brief you on everything right away, for whatever reason. Like, you don't go into a big briefing room and they tell you this, this, this. They don't give you a welcome to the TTO manual and put it down in front of you and say, this is how everything works around here. You just kind of pick it up as you go, which makes it a very, very unusual workplace because you have people going, whoa, I didn't know we did that. When I picked up an apprentice, someone was like, oh, I didn't know we had apprentices. I was like, no, we don't. That was just kind of, I did that on my own accord. But either way, I mean, something that I always found interesting, though, is the way we handle retirement, because, well, people get bored. There's so much to see in the universe and so much to do, but people do get bored. And I'm not going to go out and call out the people that have, retired, because a lot of people see it as a form of abandonment, and they don't like it. Especially those of us that have stuck it out from the very beginning, like the League of Captains. Only one person from the League of Captains has ever retired, and it was actually right away. But they just didn't like it. They couldn't deal with it. Old-fashioned folk. But the way we handle retirement, well, first of all, running missions, well, if you're on the League of Captains, you're kind of locked in for life until you feel like it. But when you come into the TTO, you are given, I believe it's 100 years. You get 100 years of work, and during that time, you can do whatever you want with your physical form. You can keep yourself the same age. You can age like I am. Well, I'm aging very slowly compared to the people. Well, compared to if someone were to walk alongside me day to day, they'd be aging a lot faster than I am. But the way I run things, especially on my starships, well, no, I don't run things per se, but people tend to stick by me, and when I go in for a little bit of an age reduction, then people follow along. The Admiral was a different story, but on board Devereaux, everyone's like a hive mind. It's kind of weird, but it's very fun, very interesting. Except for Gregory. Gregory's different. He's just aging. He said he wants to be 50. Whatever suits him, I guess. But you're given 100 years, and you can earn more years by running missions, basically. And you run missions, and you earn years, and you earn. Those are basically just years of well, no, they're years of TTO service. And then once you're done, you can retire. But you can retire at any point during that. You can say, no, I'm done, and back out, and then you're, not to say exiled, but you're permitted to take a time capsule, a one-use time capsule, and go where you please. And then from there, you can live out your life. You know, usually without any contact at all with the rest of the TTO, and you live out your life until you die. Most people, when they retire, they like to reduce their age significantly so they can have a nice long life outside of the TTO, or people do it the other way around where they essentially just kill themselves, which is kind of a shame if you ask me. But, whatever suits them, I guess. But that's really that. I mean, you join, you work to earn your keep, basically, and then you retire, and then you're cast off from the TTO. I mean, if you don't want to be here, but you don't want to retire, then you can always reach the end of your span and be let go. Let go is kind of a harsh term, but I'm trying to think of someone significant who's done that. Most people, because they are most significant people, just because they're significant, get the bigger missions, and they earn more years because of it, so they're pretty much around forever, and those are the kind of people that really enjoy being here. You know, like, most of the captains, of course, but, you know, some of the scientists, well, most of the scientists, the big kind of warrior people, I mean, the Chief, Master Chief, John 117, he's not a captain, we know that, but he is involved in almost all of the missions, almost all the big, heavy combat missions that he can get into, he's in. Like, you very rarely see him on Mabel's because he's just there and he does his mission report and he leaves. And he goes on another giant mission. I don't know where he goes. I don't keep track of the mission logs because we get missions way too fast for any human to keep track of, or any other sentient living creature. That's why we have an AI do it. And then she distributes them, and we have this thing called a PTD, a personal time device. It's about the size and shape of an average little cell phone thing, and it's a touch screen little device. There's 1 or 2 or 3 buttons along the bottom. I haven't touched mine in a while, but when you go aboard Mabel's, you synchronize, and you synchronize that, and it picks up the clock. Normally, it'll pick up the clock of wherever you are as well, so if you show up at a time, you can look at your PTD and see where you are and when you are, which is very, very handy. I have a watch that does that too. Well, time at least. But you synchronize, and it'll give you an array of missions, and you can pick one and go do it. The missions are customized to... The missions and the notifications are customized to you. Of course, when you come into the TTO at first, Mabel will kind of give you a random assortment, and whichever ones you pick and whichever ones you look at, then she'll tailor based on those, which is kind of nice. And of course, she'll always throw in the outlier just to see if she's off. And you can always confront with her if you don't like the missions you're getting. But that's how we send stuff. And when we have a mission that's just kind of random, and if it's sat around for long enough, she'll go through and pick a random person that she thinks it would be suited to and say, hey, mission request, take it, yes or no. Normally I say yes to one of those. But that's all the time I have for today, folks. I will see you next week. Depending on what next week is for me. But, you know, if you see anything unusual, keep on staring at the stars. You might see something unusual. And, yeah. Bye-bye. Off to go travel the stars.